important relationship skills. I'm really happy for all those viewing, all those listening. We're looking at important skills for healthy relationships. And we're doing number 11, which is setting boundaries. And I think this is just so important if we have to have healthy relationships. So let me just tell you what those other 10 are. And we know that relationship skills are a set of skills that help you to form healthy, happy, and strong connections. When we have deep connections with others, we can spend time with people who we have deep connections with, that we love. Life is more fulfilling. And you know, as human beings, we are made for community, right? So if I talk to Tiffany, and I'm sure one of the things that would make her happy is spending time with people that she cares about and that she feels care about her, right? That is a big part of her life. So these important relationship skills that I would have dealt with, so that if you've missed them, please, you can go on FBN TV on YouTube and you can get the videos, right? If it's not there yet, it would be uploaded soon, right? So the important skills are self-awareness, 1, 2, emotional regulation, empathy, being vulnerable, controlling anger or anger management, conflict resolution, active listening, talking and listening to each other with openness and respect, especially when we have difficult conversations. 9, forgiving. 10, repenting and apologizing. And today, the last one is setting boundaries. So you're tuning in. Tell somebody, please, this is very important. Tell them to tune in on Facebook Live, tune in on the radio, Isaac 98.1 FM, to hear this. So we're looking at setting boundaries. Now, boundaries help us to know what is okay and what is not okay in our relationship, which helps to build trust, respect, and intimacy in the relationship. So when I know, you know where you stand with a person, you know what they would appreciate, what they won't appreciate, it really helps, right? Also, boundaries are important for self-care and fulfilling our goals. And of course, if we're taking care of ourselves and we're able to fulfill our goals, we actually show up as our best selves in relationship. Imagine if Tiffany can't say no to anything, then you know by the time she reach home, her son, he don't have his mommy. She has no energy for anything. She cannot show up there as a mom, right? So the thing about it is that having boundaries really help us to fulfill what God has put us on this earth to fulfill, and also to show up as our best selves in our relationships, and especially in our important relationships. Now, a boundary is an imaginary line that separates me from you. It separates your physical space, your feelings, needs, and responsibilities from others. Your boundaries also tell people how they can treat you, what is acceptable, what is not. Boundaries are also a reflection of your principles, your values, your rules, your guidelines that you have set for yourself based on your worldview and belief. So there are things, I have a Christian worldview, a worldview that says Jesus is Lord. The Bible is the final authority on how I should live my life, right? And therefore, there are things that would be acceptable for me and things that would not. And therefore, my boundaries should reflect that. My boundaries should reflect my beliefs. So when it comes to relationships, there are different types of boundaries. And this is important to understand even as we're looking at setting boundaries. There are different types of boundaries, right? So there are physical boundaries, and your physical boundaries refer to your body. It refers to privacy, touch, personal space, what you eat, what you drink, right? It refers to those things. So I remember somebody gave my mother a monkey to eat, and she didn't know she was eating it. And of course, when she found out, she was a little bit upset, right? But all these things are physical boundaries. So if you say to somebody, I don't eat wild meat, that is a physical boundary. Please don't give me that to eat, right? For whatever reason, right? You have intellectual boundaries, and these things relate to our ideas and beliefs. It's about showing respect for the views and ideas of others. So you have intellectual boundaries. So we may not agree on everything that a person shares, even intellectually, but we can still be respectful and respectfully disagree, right? We have that as a boundary. We have emotional and mental boundaries. So far we said we have physical boundaries, we have intellectual boundaries, we have emotional and mental boundaries. And these protect your right to your own feelings and thoughts, and to those feelings, to have those feelings and thoughts validated. It's about how much you are willing to share emotionally and how much you can give emotionally when you do things like listening and supporting others emotionally. So there have been times, because I give so much emotionally, especially with respect to my job and in terms of ministry and things like that, I have said to persons, please only message me on WhatsApp. I have no emotional energy to listen. It's not that I don't care about you, it's not that I don't love you, but I have no emotional energy to truly listen to you in terms of a conversation. Because when I'm listening to somebody, I'm really listening to them. I'm not just pretending I'm listening. So, you know, those are emotional and mental boundaries. We have sexual boundaries, and these have to do with consent, what you will or will not do sexually, and even with respect to the use of contraception. So you see how many different types of boundaries so far, right? Physical boundaries, intellectual boundaries, emotional and mental boundaries. We have sexual boundaries. We have time boundaries, right? And this has to do with how you prioritize your time, how you spend your time, how much your time is worth. And then we have financial and material boundaries. And of course, just hearing that, you know, it has to do with things that you have, your material and financial possessions. So it looks like how you want to use them. And we understand, as followers of Jesus, it is God who gave us the grace, the favor to have all that we have. So of course, we are guided by him in how we are stewards with all that we have been given. So, you know, how I want to use my house, my finances, my physical things I own, even how you want your possessions to be taken care of. So I know definitely don't take care of nothing, right? And then she want to come and borrow my car. And I know at the end of the day is I have to pay if anything happens. You know what? I might probably put a little boundary and say, you know, use a TT rideshare, sister, or I will give you some money towards using, right? So we have boundaries. And these are very important things if we have to have healthy relationship. Now, from childhood, we were taught to bend and change ourselves to make others feel comfortable. Now, part of this is simply living in community and loving people. If we live in community and we love people, we want to be able to show that people's needs, their desires, their wants are important. We want to be hospitable. These are things that we understand even as followers of Jesus. But sometimes the messages that are implied, and sometimes it is direct, right? So for example, a child may say, not a child, sorry, a parent may say, I don't care about whether you want to hug your grandfather or not. It is disrespectful not to. Now, a child may be sensing something and feeling something uncomfortable, but they're learning, forget what you're sensing. You need to do this. How this person feel, so grandfather feeling disrespected is more important than what you're feeling. So it becomes difficult to set boundaries when we get older, because a message is being communicated to us that the feelings, the needs, the wants of others are more important than yours. And we grow up not wanting to offend or to hurt others, even when doing that will ultimately mean that we are hurting ourselves. We have been taught from an early age to put the feelings of others over our own needs and feelings, to the point where many of us do not even know how to answer the question, how to start setting boundaries, because in a real sense, you don't have boundaries, or what we call porous boundaries. So anything going in and out. right? So it's all about pleasing people. It's all about people not being hurt, right? And that is very dangerous. So even as I spoke about porous boundaries, there are 3 different types of boundaries, or 3 ways in which we can set boundaries. So you have that one I just spoke about as porous or permeable boundaries, where we let in anything in or out, anything in or out. It's like a free for all, right? Free for all. And then we have semi-permeable boundaries, or what we call flexible boundaries, where we decide that we letting in the good and keeping out the bad, right? And then we have rigid boundaries where we're not letting anything in. It's just me and Jesus. No, nothing else, right? And we know that we can't live like that. So of course, listen to this, you would realize that unhealthy boundaries are either rigid or porous. Both are unhealthy, where I'm not letting anything in. I'm not letting in the good. So I'm not only am I with a rigid boundary, I'm not letting in the bad, but I'm also not letting in the good. And therefore, no growth is taking place. Actually, I am getting worse as a person. And then we have the porous boundaries, free for all. Come and take what you want. No saying no, yes, everything. And we could see a person like that will be worn out, depleted, resentful of people, upset, right? Want to know why. So why they had to ask? Or why you had to say yes? Right? So why they didn't know to only take so much? Why did you allow them to take so much? Right? So now there are many reasons why people may consistently struggle with unhealthy boundaries, such as fear of rejection. If I say no, they won't like me. A lack of experience in setting limitations. So you could grow up in a home where you didn't see people setting limitations. A lot of craziness happening, and so that you don't even know how to do that, or even in being parented, your parents and say, well, you can't say no, you do not have to do that. Your auntie asks so and so, and you can't do it. You can talk to your auntie and so you start to realize, okay, I can set limitations. It is okay for me to say no, even to loved ones, right? You have where people have an overly agreeable personality, and I really call that people pleasing, which of course has to do with, I have to do what people want to feel important, to feel like enough, to feel accepted, to feel valuable, right? Which is people pleasing. And of course, the whole aspect of just a low self-esteem. So I get my sense of worth from people liking me, or people giving me compliments, or things like that. Also, why people may consistently struggle with unhealthy boundaries, we could have fears, different fears of setting boundaries. So I have the fear of losing love. So I feel if I stand up for this and I put my foot down on this, or I say no to this person wouldn't love me anymore. This relationship would end. Fear of loneliness. If I do this, these people won't like me again. Relationships will end. The fear of anger. So sometimes the fear of a person's anger. So if I tell Tiffany no, she's going to blow up, and I really can't deal with that. I can't deal with her blowing up. And then after the silent treatment that comes after that, it really takes a toll on me emotional. Painting Tiffany like a real bad person today, boy. Thank God, Tiffany, identity in Jesus. Right? Right? So I don't want to set boundaries because the person will blow up, and then I'll get 3 weeks of silent treatment. So I really don't want that. It just makes life so miserable. A fear of hurting others, fear of being misunderstood. Like people might think, she don't care, she just stingy. So I say, no, Tiffany, I can't use my car. You see all here, God bless all here. And now, you can't bless people, you're stingy. That's not how a Christian should live. Right? Guilt trip, gaslighting, all these things that people could do that, we don't want those things. We're afraid of those things. So those are some reasons why persons don't set boundaries. Now, I'm going to be looking at mindsets for healthy boundaries. And some of the information I'll be sharing is taken from Self-Help Alliance, Better Boundaries, copyright 2010, Johnson State College, Vermont, Developing Healthy Boundaries. And it's a PDF. And of course, I am sharing from my own experiences. So I did 18 mindsets for healthy boundaries. So if we have to set healthy boundaries, everything starts with our thinking. Even your thinking determines how you feel, right? So one, as an adult, I have the power to make choices for myself. One, that's an important mindset. Two, I am both valuable and imperfect. I am both valuable and imperfect. Three, I am in a lifelong process of growth. As the Bible tells us, as followers of Jesus, we are growing from glory to glory. I am in a lifelong process of growth. Number four, my individual significance is not lowered or raised by others' opinions of me. Why? God sees me as significant, right? So your significance is not lowered or raised by others' opinions of you. Number five, my quality of life is enriched when living in interdependent relationships, because this idea that we independent is really an idea, but it's a myth. We are interdependent. So my quality of life is enriched when living in interdependent relationships with cooperative and respectful people. And of course, we know that God wired us for community. Now, on the inverse of that, my quality of life is diminished when living in interdependent relationships with uncooperative and disrespectful people. Number seven, my intrinsic value is neither more or less than others. I am priceless, and so is everyone else. So you are not more valuable than anyone else, and neither is anybody more valuable than you. And these are very important mindsets to have if we have to set boundaries in our lives. Number eight, certain types of contributions will be more esteemed than others in society or in some circles. But this does not add to or diminish the significance of my contribution. So in whatever setting we're in, if I'm in a setting where the pipe to my tap in my sink bursts, right? The skill that I am looking for is a plumber, a person with plumbing skills. If you come around me and you tell me you real good at admats, I don't want to know that at that point in time. So the whole thing about it is that certain types of contributions will be more esteemed than others in society and in some circles, and also what is necessary at the point in time. But this does not, so you having that skill to do admats good, that's a wonderful thing. But it may not be esteemed at that point because I need my tap fixed because my house flooding, right? But that does not diminish the significance of what you bring to the table, what God has placed in you in terms of your skills, your contribution to make. Number 9, others' talents are a pleasure to observe and applaud. And this is very important. We must be able to take pleasure in seeing other people do what God has wired them to do. Use their abilities and talents to be a blessing to others and to themselves. And we must be able to do this. Mustn't always be all about you. Then that's not, what's that? That's narcissism, right? Number 10, I value life and operate from a sense of gratitude, not entitlement. I am grateful for every day that I'm able to be on this side of eternity and to be able for God to use me to be a blessing to others. I don't feel entitled to anything. I don't have to, because God has already given his all, right? If he never gave anything else, be okay. Yeah. Number 11, I am able to face challenges and meet problems by the grace of God. So even in setting boundaries, which can be a challenge, you can do it by God's divine empowerment. Number 12, I accept and love myself. You know why? Because the God of the universe loves me. 13, I believe I can contribute significantly to the good of others and the world. You have something to do. 14, I have a right to my own feelings. 15, boundaries are necessary and appropriate. 16, boundaries do not violate love. Actually, if you have no boundaries, you are violating love, right? 17, setting limits is necessary to keep relationships healthy and growing. And number 18, I am not compelled to justify a boundary with apologetic explanations. I was talking to my niece and she was saying, Auntie, I need to ask somebody for something. And, I don't really want to. And I'll explain to her, yes, just the vulnerability of asking, we understand, and that it could be rejected. She said, yeah, but I don't, but you ask somebody for help and they say no and they don't explain. I say, well, somebody don't have to explain to you why they're not helping you. She said, but that's what I just do. I said, that's what you do. So you're expecting it from people, but it doesn't have to be. Someone can say no to you because you asked, and they can say, no, I am unable to, whether they say at this time, or I'm unable to, full stop, and they don't have to explain to you. So this is a myth that we could have, so you come to me and I have to explain my whole life story about why I can't do what you're asking me to do. No, I don't have to. You don't have to either, right? Remember, healthy boundaries help to protect you and help you to fulfill your purpose. And somebody said this, not me, so I don't know who said it. Couldn't find the author. The shortest route to better boundaries is to really like yourself. Better yet, really love yourself. End of quote. So we're going to be looking at how to set and maintain boundaries. So 8 basic principles of healthy boundary setting. So it's important to understand these principles. 8 basic principles of healthy boundary setting. 1, decent people set boundaries. Establishing boundaries make you a safe person. People know where they stand with you. Boundaries are the way we take care of ourselves. We have both a right and a duty to protect and defend ourselves, right? So decent people set boundaries. Generous people set boundaries. If you do not set boundaries, you are giving away willy-nilly to whoever and whatever, right? With boundaries, we give what we want to, right? Which means we can afford to be generous to more people over a longer period of time. So generous people set boundaries. Boundaries allow us to grow because it makes others conscious of their behavior. Boundaries allow others actually to grow. So 3, boundaries allow others to grow because it makes others conscious of their behavior and thus allowing them to change. So boundaries is a loving thing if we're helping people to grow. Number 4, boundaries allow you to get more of what you want and less of what you don't. Boundaries not only protect you from unwanted behaviors, they also foster the behaviors that you want. Number 5, effective people set boundaries because doing so keeps you in control of your time and efforts, which makes you feel better about yourself. This leads to you being more effective. And remember, as followers of Jesus, even how we use our time, all these things are guided by godly biblical principles. So I'm not trying to say, well, it's my life, I could do whatever I want with it. I believe as a follower of Jesus, my life belongs to Jesus. And all these things, when I say what I would want to do, even my wants are guided by what Jesus as my Lord and Savior expects of me. Yeah. Number 6, it's you stick to your guns. In order for boundary setting to work for you, you must develop a commitment to uphold what is right and true. You must consistently be upholding your boundaries. Be consistent in upholding your boundaries. Number 7, practice makes perfect. If this is not familiar behavior, it will feel awkward and unnatural at first, but I like the statement, but anything worth doing is worth doing badly at first. So at first I mightn't do it well, but because it's worth doing, just give it a try. It might be bad, but that's okay. Anything worth doing is worth doing badly at first. People may not like it at first, and that is natural, right? You're doing something that you've never done before. They are used to getting their own way with you. And the last one, keep it up. With practice, you will get more skillful and graceful at setting boundaries. So guidelines to setting effective boundaries, right? Back up, boundary setting with action, be direct, firm, and gracious. Do not debate, defend, or over-explain. Have support, right? Easily available on the sidelines in the beginning. And finally, stay strong, do not give in. So I want to look at maintaining boundaries and give some examples. So while it's usually best to set boundaries early on in relationships, establishing healthy rules and limitations can help strengthen a relationship at any stage. So it doesn't matter the stage of the relationship. And sometimes in many cases, we don't even realize that certain boundaries or restrictions are needed until you get to know somebody more, right? So it might take you time to realize, you know, a friend that you work with is regularly distracting you on the job. So you might realize that at first, but then you realize, oh, this person can really talk, boy, they always distract. And then you realize I have to put a boundary there, but you didn't realize that at first. Or you're in a romantic relationship and the person seems controlling, but you didn't realize that at first. So now you have to put some kind of boundary in place, right? So the following tips can help you establish boundaries if you are experiencing trouble communicating or connecting with a person in your life. So 1, know what you want in a relationship. Whether the relationship is romantic or platonic, you know, like a friendship, it is hard to have your needs met if you do not know what they are. Reflecting on your values and beliefs is a good place to start. So know what you want in a relationship. So some of the things that you need to think about are, what are my personal core values? What traits do I like to see in other relationships? What behaviors bother me? What qualities do I admire in others? What material items matter the most to me and why? How do I like to spend my time? What makes me feel fulfilled? By gaining a more thorough understanding of yourself, you can begin to imagine the types of boundaries you need. If you know that your relationship with God is a priority, you are likely to set boundaries about the activities that you would be involved in. If you value things like high productivity, you might set boundaries with friends, co-workers who tend to, you know, just want to line, talk, and not get anything done. So it's important to know what you want in a relationship. Secondly, assess how you feel with someone. Thinking about how others make you feel, and with you, how does this person make me feel, can help you to identify necessary boundaries. So after interacting with other people, reflect on your feelings by asking yourself questions. Did the other person make jokes or comments that made you feel disrespected? Did they do anything to make you physically or emotionally uncomfortable and unsafe, such as raise their voices in anger or making flirtatious or disrespectful comments? Did you feel pressured to do things that did not match your values? You're thinking about, how do I feel around this person? Do I need to set a boundary here? Did you feel overwhelmed by the person's requests or expectations of you? So, sometimes I need to be able to say, no, if I'm your friend, I cannot call you every day. Probably twice a week I could manage, right? Because of my life. So you see any person's expectations and you're letting them know, these are my boundaries, right? Did you feel as if they were infringing on your sense of control or treating you like a child? So it's important to think about, how do I feel around this person? And is a boundary necessary here? Number 3, identify the symptoms of your boundaries currently being violated or ignored, or even where boundaries were violated and ignored in the past. Do you feel taken advantage of? Are you always in drama with people? Do you feel like you always have to be explaining yourself? Do you feel burnt out? These are normal signs that you don't have healthy boundaries. You're always in some kind of drama, people feeling like you're taking it for granted. You always explain. You need boundaries. Something is happening there. Number 4, identify the irrational or unhealthy thinking and belief that cause you to allow your boundaries to be ignored and violated. And remember, I would have shared those earlier up in the program. And so remember, if I set a boundary, we think, if I set a boundary, I will hurt the persons or lose the relationships, or other people's needs and wants are more important than mine. Even I'm just too sensitive, because people have told you you're too sensitive. So these things stop you from setting boundaries. Number 5, identify new and more rational, healthy thinking and beliefs, which will encourage you to change your behaviors so that you will build healthy boundaries between you and others. And I even shared some of those, right? Boundaries are necessary and appropriate. Boundaries do not violate love. Setting limits is necessary to keep relationships healthy and growing. 6, identify new behaviors you need to add to your healthy boundary building behaviors, right? Things like how to have a healthy confrontation if a boundary is crossed, right? How do I, communicate boundaries? And 7, implement the healthy boundary beliefs and behaviors in your life. So what I want to do in closing here, and yes, I'm looking at the time, situational examples of setting healthy boundaries, because I don't want to go into another program. I want to finish today, right? So anger. I don't appreciate you continuing to shout at me. And if you do, I will leave the room and end this meeting. That is actually you setting a boundary. Buying time, and this is something I had to do. I have a policy of not making snap decisions. I need time to think and reflect on what I want to do. If you need an immediate answer, it will be no. If you want an immediate answer from me, I'm just telling you no, because I need time to think. That is a boundary. Criticism, right? It is not okay with me for you to make comments about my weight over and over. Please stop. If you do not, I will not be able to continue this conversation and even to continue meeting with you, right? Extra commitments. So I want you to do this, that, and the other. Although this is an important issue to me, I must decline your request for help at this time, or I need to honor my family's needs. So I cannot do this because I need to honor my family's needs. I can't tell you the last time my husband and I went out. So I have to say no to this, right? And even with money, I would not be lending you any more money. I care about you, and you need to start taking responsibility for yourself. All these are ways of setting boundaries, right? But remember, it is not enough to just set boundaries. It is necessary to be willing to do whatever it takes to enforce them. Enforcing boundaries means following through with consequences. So some guidelines for setting consequences. Set the consequences clearly and unemotionally. So I'm not doing this with no rah-rah and fight down. It's not about that. Say actions you are willing to take if boundaries are crossed. You may need to allow for gradual change. Also, consequences may be negotiable rather than rigid, right? So sometimes you can even talk through that with the person. So examples of stating clear consequences. If you break plans with me by not showing up or calling me, I will call you on your behavior and let you know how I feel. If you continue, whatever that offensive behavior is, I would leave the room or the house or ask you to leave. And you have to, so you're telling what the consequences are, and you have to follow through on it. If you continue to ignore my solutions and suggestions, so you are asking me how to help you through this, you are saying, thank you, I am taking your solutions and suggestions, right? So if you continue to ignore my solutions or suggestions, I will assume that you are not interested in receiving assistance from me, and I will stop communicating with you on this issue, right? Because I could be dealing with somebody else. So you're given clear consequences and you are going to follow through on them. If you are not ready to end a relationship or conversation, do not say you are until you really are. So some people will say, if you don't do so and so, I'll end this relationship, but they're not really ready to end it. Don't say that. Say something like, we will not continue this conversation. I would be leaving. I will hang up the phone. Don't say you're ready to end and you know you're not ready to end and you're crying for the next 3 months about why you do this, right? Right? So if people are unwilling to respect your boundaries, they are not true friends or people you want to spend time with. Setting personal boundaries and limits can be very important in how you lead your life and the quality of relationships you have. So I really pray that this series on relationship skills, skills necessary for healthy relationships has really been impactful. If we have persons who are still interested, they can WhatsApp me.
Right, and let me give them the number, 329-7383. That number again, 329-7383. Make sure you connect with Petreece